type of tool. Maybe it's chat tools like we're on right now. Maybe that's CRM. Maybe that's other things. When we think of digital workplace, we tend to think of modern digital workplace, right? So not so much the legacy systems, not so much accounting. All of those are, of course, very important too, but more the systems that help us connect in relationships with each other, to innovate, to create, to share, to relate, to do things that are a little bit more fuzzy around the edges than those more hardwired operational systems that were, really around the first 50 years of technology. But these people first systems are the emerging ones. And that's what we think about when we think digital workplace. But the approach certainly works for everything. So we're going to walk through a framework, hopefully that everyone can relate to. But I like to start with some things that help us vision of why are we even here, right? You're here to learn about maybe some things you can reapply in your workplace to build an annual plan. And in a crazy changing world, I know for us, business kind of dropped off, picked up a little bit, dropped off, and now it's picking up a lot again, because I think a lot of organizations are experiencing what you have experienced, and that is, oh, here comes COVID, we better slow down. It looks like it's going to be temporary. A few said, wow, we should have done some things with digital workplace a while ago to be ready for this. Let's jump in now. Others said, let's hunker down until this is past us. I think what has now happened is people realized it's not going to be past us really soon. There's a long-term effort here. We still don't know what it's going to look like, but we better assume we're going to have to work a little bit differently for a long time. So what do we do to get ready for that? So as most companies think about digital workplace, either as a big picture umbrella statement across everything, or as a specific discrete project, like we want to roll out Microsoft Teams or a CRM solution, they kind of think this way. They kind of think, we've been doing things a similar way for a long time. It's comfortable. It's something that we've kind of built institutionally. We know how it works. We may not even have detailed training on all of it, but we've learned how to go down this comfortable path to get where we need to go in this lovely organization that we've built. But now we know it's time for a change, and we want to take that lovely little country road and turn it into a superhighway, right? We want efficiency, we want fast moving, we want process. And so we get a demo and we think this looks like it. This looks like the new digital thing that will help us take that old thing and do it much better. And so we sign up and we start moving forward. And all of a sudden we realize if you're going to build a highway, you're going to have a lot of traffic, and you weren't ready for that, right? Executives a lot of times think the demo didn't look like that. Why are things slowing down? Or another expectation that people often don't have is, well, wait a minute, we're actually repairing this road, and this road is not so great. Actually, we've still got a lot of potholes in it. So it's not the superhighway that we thought it was. And the third thing that often happens is you might have the superhighway, but you're not getting anybody on it. We kind of were chatting about, Jennifer and I were chatting about change management earlier, and that's another outcome that needs to be thought through when you do a digital workplace plan. Is you can build a superhighway, but if you get out there and you get it set up and nobody's on it, that's a problem. As a guy who got reintroduced to motorcycle riding relatively recently, it's in the past 8 years, I'd say, rode as a kid, didn't ride for a while, took a rider safety course and got a bike once our kids were out of the house, because it's something I always enjoyed doing. And for about the first 6 months, I avoided the highways, but occasionally I wound up in a situation where I had to jump on one for a while. I'm on a highway on this motorcycle next to 18-wheelers, moving very fast, feeling like I'm not in control of this highway. I don't trust myself on the bike yet. I don't trust the bike yet. And I certainly don't trust that 18-wheeler who's about 6 feet away from me in the next lane. It was kind of terrifying getting out on those highways. And that's what our users have to deal with as well. It's frightening. Those old roads, those old lovely ways we used to get things done, they're comfortable. I know I'm in control. I know I can get what I want out of those. Getting out there, moving fast, maybe I'll take a wrong turn and hurt somebody or myself in the process. So all of that is stuff to think about as you do it. But the core thing when you think about a digital workplace plan is this. You're never going to create a superhighway by accident. You're never going to create a superhighway by doing a lot of little patchwork on your existing road. So you can't get there by saying, we've got this comfortable way of doing things. Let's just keep filling the potholes until it gets better. Now, there's a time and a place to fill potholes, so I'm not arguing against that. But if you want transformation, if you want to really change how you're going to move, you're going to need a plan to get there, and it's going to require some incremental steps. So that's kind of our why. I like starting with the why. Why are we even here today? Why are we talking about this? Quick introduction to me. Name is Jeff Abels. Work right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Have run a business called C5 Insight for not quite 20 years now. Thoroughly enjoy what I do. Kind of geek out on it. I love the intersection of where people and digital meet, right? So not digital as a way to replace the human touch, but digital as a way to actually make us superhuman. So to augment what we already know works in human relationships, but to go broader and deeper with each other than we ever could before we had this whole new set of tools to work with. So that's the area I work in. You can call that customer and employee experience if you want to, or engagement. That's kind of the popular term for it. But I spend a lot of time in it because it's kind of a hobby and a passion too. And then a little bit on the non-geeky side, this is why I do it. Here's my family. My daughters are both grown and married now. We love hanging around with our sons-in-law. There's our new adoptive daughter, Verdi, with the hat there. She helped fill in our empty nest. My wife and I love spending time with each other now in our empty nest stage, riding our motorcycle together and drinking good wine whenever we can, trying not to do those things at the same time. And there's our new little grandson. So the newest addition to the family. He was born right as this whole thing was getting started, the day after St. Patrick's Day. And we love hanging around with him whenever we can. So a little bit about me. So as you think about putting your plan together, here's kind of how you start. And Jennifer, let me just ask, I guess not ask, I'm going to move my video over to this other screen because it might be distracting from the slides. So if you're trying to tell me something, you're over there now and I may not see you. So make sure you unmute and talk to me. First of all, throughout today's presentation, you're going to see these little orange callouts. Those are more resources because we have an hour, a little less than an hour to try to get through. I've got 59 slides, so about a minute per slide, a little less. So lots of callouts there. And you can reach out to Jennifer or me if you don't capture the links to all these things. I'll be glad to put all those together in an email and send them to you if you want to do more deep dive study on this. I'm not going to point those out each time. They'll just be there. So as you think about digital workplace, you tend to think about the pillars of your digital workplace. You see the tools, you see the solutions, and you think, we need better ways to share content with each other, whether those are files and folders or web pages or posts and social. We need a way to collaborate with each other, to communicate, like video calls, like social posts. We need a way to automate our routines, whether it's an approval or taking time entry information and moving it into our accounting system, whatever it is. And then we need analytics, we need insights. So you tend to see all those tools, you tend to get a bunch of demos, and you tend to kind of get to work trying to use them. And none of those are bad, but what happens is you're often getting to work without a foundation in place. So when I think about foundation, I think about the bottom part of the slide. And what you really want to do is, ideally, before you ever get started, have a roadmap. Most of you are probably already underway. That's okay. But begin an annual planning cadence. Just like you plan your annual regular workplace, add digital as a part of your annual planning cycle. And I'll give you the tools to do that today. I put those other things in the foundation there, mostly to point out that you touch on those in your annual plan, but those are different things. So you need to do individual project plans too. Your annual plan is not a project plan. It is actually milestones you aim to achieve throughout the year. Those milestones turn into projects you're going to execute. You need governance plans, ways to make sure that you've got good data management, ways to make sure you've got good user policies so that you're communicating well and in a way that's helpful and beneficial to everybody. And you need change management and adoption plans. I never use the word training anymore because training just does not begin to scratch the surface of what change management really is. So today, we're in that bottom black box. We'll be touching a few of those ones above it, but that's our main plan today. The other things, very, very important. You should plan to talk about those too. So how do you build an annual plan? How do you do a roadmap? This is our outline for the rest of the day today, 4-step process. So what we have found is you start by collaborating as a team. You begin by listening to each other, right? So bring the team together, get a cross section. It might be your entire team if you're a smaller business. It might be a selective sample of subject matter experts across different lines of business. but bring them together to say, we need to listen to you. We need to understand what are the actual problems we're trying to solve? What are the actual opportunities we're trying to avail ourselves of? Lots of listening goes on. Then begin to look at all that information you've gathered and analyze it. That's the role in large organizations of what you might call a business analyst. That might be one of many hats you're wearing if you're trying to put the plan together in a smaller organization. But you want to take all the information, filter it down, and say, how can I deliver on what is being asked of this in a meaningful way? Remember, the people who you're collaborating with, they're not the experts on getting it done. So your role is not necessarily to just do what they say to do. Your role is to actually understand what they're saying to do and then decide what is possible, when is it possible, is it in the annual plan, or does it need to get pushed out further? Third, then you put it all together in the plan. You put the document together, which includes things like helping to explain the problem again, helping people to understand why the recommendations are the way they are, maybe even putting together a business case saying, here's why we should invest in this. Whatever the investment is, and the smallest investment you're going to make in this is a huge amount of time for your people, even if nothing else actually costs you dollars. That investment is the most expensive thing you have to offer, and you've got to get your people engaged. So you need to validate that this is worth doing, and then validate it with everybody. Go back and go through it together to say, is this a plan we can all get behind? Is this something we can all work on together? So I like to keep things simple, and I like to bring them back to this basic foundation for all relationships. You're really going to do 4 things to build your plan. You're going to listen to the team. You're going to understand what it is they're telling you. You're going to connect your expertise with what they're telling you to build a plan, and you're going to know what the results are and improve it, and then begin to roll the plan out. Okay, simple way to think about what you're going to do. And I'm going to try to give you tools for each one of these. So you might be familiar with this idea of begin with why, start with why. Simon Sinek is a famous guy for talking about if you really define why you're doing something well and get people to understand and agree to the why, you're going to get a lot more traction. When you begin to listen to the team, one of the first things we say you should do is define your why. It's not easy to do, by the way, and you won't get it perfect the first time. But if you're doing an annual plan, revisit it each time, and you'll be surprised how it begins to come out. Here is one example of what this looks like. If you are focusing on the what, you're going to walk away with something like this. Oh, we need to form an Office 365 steering committee. Now it's called Microsoft 365, so the slide's a little bit old. So great, you want to implement Office 365. When you focus on the what, you're focusing on technology, right? We need to make this piece of technology work. When you focus on the why, you come up with a different term. And this actually comes directly from a nonprofit that we work with, Prison Fellowship, where they looked at it and said, we want to deploy something that helps us with employee engagement. So we're going to be the digital employee engagement leadership team. We're not setting up Office 365 for the sake of cool technology or for the sake of we bought it, so now we need to do something with it. We're looking at it as one tool in a suite of things that are helping us move towards this. And guess what? If Office 365 gets in the way of us achieving this why, well, then we're going to focus on the why, not, oh my gosh, nobody's using this tool. How do we get them to use it? Well, maybe they're not using the tool because it's not helping them attain the why. So we're using it the wrong way. We need to do something else about that. That seems like a small point, and I can tell you I do sessions where I let people kind of pick what we're going to focus on and prioritize things out of many, many topics. Why is always up there, and it's almost always the lowest prioritized one. But I can tell you about 70% of the work we do is what I call rescue work, helping organizations to fix projects that are kind of off track, that have lost their way a little bit. And I can tell you almost every single one of those, the why has not been defined well enough at the core of it. It's worth taking the time to define your why. Okay, so when you think about your why, here's a quick offer of what are you trying to do with your digital workplace? Why actually are you doing a digital workplace? Adapt, don't adopt. I'm going to give you a high-level idea. You can pull out bits and pieces of this that are right for you. So one thing you want to do in a digital workplace is you need a place to put content. That content is video recordings, files, worksheets, social posts, whatever it is, any kind of digital content that's out there. You need a place that you can put that that's central that everybody can get to. And when all that knowledge goes in, You need a way to now get knowledge back out. You've put content in. Now I need to get knowledge out. Why do I need to get knowledge out? I need to be more efficient. I need to make better decisions is really ultimately what it is. And to make better decisions, I've got to be able to have better insights. I've got to share a knowledge repository that a new employee can go to where they don't have to miss stuff because they weren't in a meeting. That meeting recording is actually there for them to go learn from after they join. Content in, knowledge out. Then I need a place for transforming knowledge into action. Some of that's through process automation. Some of it's through more informal, human-oriented processes around things like innovation. But I need a way to say, how do I take all that knowledge and now I start to take action from it? I have processes in place where I change what I'm doing as an organization. And finally, how do I collaborate as a team to understand what's going on throughout all those steps, share the score with each other so we can constantly innovate, so that I don't just put content in, get knowledge out, have better processes and do better things, but I also understand we are always improving. Those better things could always be better than they actually were, and better and better and better. The way to continue to make things better is by creating relationships where people collaborate and everybody has a voice in identifying problems, identifying opportunities, and making improvements. And underlying all of that is this theme of it's about relationships, right? We want people to be able to connect with each other more broadly and deeply than they otherwise could if we didn't have that. Today, more than ever, that's really difficult if you can't physically be together. It's hard to connect, so that's meaningful. But for a lot of organizations, if you're beyond a certain size or you just have a decentralized group that can't get together as much, you still have to have some platform for relationships. So how do I put this into simpler format? That's saying we want to listen better, content in. We want to understand better, get knowledge out. We want to connect with each other to create processes that work. We want to know the results so that we can constantly improve. So if you're trying to think of what's our why, there's a stab at a why for you. And by the way, remember the bottom, I said relationships underlie all this. Listen, understand, connect, and know, that's what you do. Good luck, that's why. That's the reason you do it. And you guys are mostly nonprofits here today. More than any other organizations in the world, you exist to serve people. And so understanding that underlying why is really important. So we call that being powered by luck. I wouldn't say adopt that as your mantra, but I would say borrow from that and use it to come up with your own reason why. Okay, so now let's jump into these 4 categories we talked about and talk a little bit more about how you actually build out a plan using these. So category 1, collaborate and listening to people to do that. So the first thing to think about as you decide who should be engaged in thinking about our digital workplace plan. I like acronyms, you will see. So here's another acronym for you, CUBS. So think about customers, users, the business, and systems. So it's interesting because a lot of these digital workplace projects, people think, well, these are really internally focused. But having done a lot of these plans for many different organizations, what comes out about 100% of the time is sentences ending, so I can serve the customer better, right? So you guys have lots of customers. You might have volunteers, you might have donors, you might have the people that your organization exists to serve, whoever those are, lots of different definitions of a customer. Then you have users. What I would challenge you to think about when you think about the users of your digital workplace, don't think of users as the front line. Think of the users as everyone who can and should have access to this, including managers and leaders. There's a lot of evidence that strongly suggests that you are much more successful with this if leaders and managers view digital workplace tools as leadership and management tools, not just as something for the people to use while they leverage their other skills. These are manager skill and leadership skills you need to have too. And then the business. Ultimately, your organization has needs and you're doing a digital workplace to help with those needs. What are those needs? How do you measure them? And then systems. You've got a lot of systems already. You've got the people that support those systems. Those people need to be brought to the table in partnership with this as well. The 2 main sins I see happening frequently here are either it's all about systems. Well, we delegated this just to the IT group and they're making almost all the decisions and moving forward with it. Any kind of people first technology, that's generally a mistake with. On the other hand, I also see people say, well, we don't want to work with the IT group on this, so we've completely gone around them and are doing something else on our own, and later IT is invited in to try to pick up the pieces and clean up the mess. Neither of those approaches work very well. You need leadership people owning and sponsoring and deciding on funding and requirements for the project. If you don't have that, and you have instead business people who are saying, well, look, we know we need this and we trust IT to make all of those decisions, you're probably not going to be successful. You need both of those things in place. And then, yes, think about those other constituencies as well. So that's who you want to get to the table. Part of why you want to get them to the table is not just to get their expertise out, but no matter what you do in your digital workplace, you are going to be asking people to change their habits. Right, we support a lot of Microsoft technologies, one of those Microsoft teams. I can tell you, as a company who does this for a living, we went through our own adoption curve for something like Teams. So people are like, well, wait a minute, I'm used to using email. This is taking me a long time to change my habits and do different things. If we struggle with that, then other organizations, probably particularly like yours, because you are probably a very people-first organization, you're going to struggle with that. So one way to begin the process of better adoption and getting people to take control of this, take ownership of it, is getting them to help you create it. Even if at the end of the day, they can't tell you anything you don't know already, it doesn't matter. But 99.9 times out of 100, they can actually tell you a lot of things you don't know already too. So a lot of good reasons to do that. So when you've got the right leadership team in the room, this is a question we like to start with. We just say, look, who are the personas this project should have a clear and positive impact on? And they begin listing those down. And there's a whole exercise we can do with this, but generally it involves putting stickies on a wall. Now there's a tool we use called Mural that's virtual stickies on a wall. So if you can't get together physically, you can do it with tools like that. But you brainstorm, here's all the personas, right? It's not Bob, it's roles, it's teams, it's groups, it's titles. So, and CUBS might be what goes up there, but you'll probably have something more specific than that. You capture all of those. Now, you can start to dissect those personas a little bit more to say, what do we know about those personas? I'm not going to spend much time on this today. Depending on your size and structure, you may or may not have the bandwidth to do this. But that first form up there is called an empathy map. The lower one is more of a persona profile. They kind of link with each other. But the idea with an empathy map is saying, I really want to understand the feelings behind this person. The ultimate outcome is this. I can understand what frustrates that person so much, I want to solve that problem for them, right? You're really getting it. That's why they call it empathy, right? It's not just, I've explained what I want, and okay, here's your requirement, I'll try to do it for you. But wow, I really understand, as someone who has to talk to donors every day, here's some really frustrating and time-consuming things for you that, oh my gosh, I really want to make those go away and make this a friction-free process for you, because it's important to you, it's important to donors, it's important to the organization, and it's important to me. So you've really started to deeply understand people. What also happens when you do that is people tend to start understanding each other better in your organization and appreciating different roles more. Then you can prioritize the personas. So ideally you say, look, we may not be able to do everything everybody wants. So you take all the personas, you do a little voting exercise. The way we typically do this is we say, you each get 7 voting dots, real sticky dots or virtual dots, and you can cast them however you want. So if you think customers are who this should mostly be about serving, you put all 7 of your dots on that Post-it that says customer persona. Or more realistically, you might say, well, I'm going to put 2 dots on customer, I'm going to put 1 dot on the executive team, I'm going to put 3 dots on the fundraising team, and I'm not good enough at math to know if I've got any left over, but you put your other ones somewhere else. Everyone goes through that, you add up the dots, you might go through it twice so people can voice their dissension with the popular opinion. So if they go, wow, donors came out as the #1 thing, someone might go, that's great, and I know they're the lifeblood of our organization. Without them, we can't keep showing up every day and doing what we do. But ultimately, donors aren't the reason we do what we do. It's this other definition of a customer that really is the reason we do what we do. We should focus on that. I'm not advocating for it, but I'm saying that's the kind of discussion you may have, and then revote. So you kind of get a fairly good consensus on, okay, we've got 10 personas here, and here they are in rank order. So if we can only serve 1 or 2 of them this year, we know which 1 or 2 are really important for us to serve this year. Now, what I've just described is what I call luck storming, right? It's another way to engage with each other. This is the third time you've heard me use the acronym LUCK. LUCK is this framework that's at the foundation of every human relationship, right? We form relationships by listening to each other, really giving people a voice and understanding them, not just hearing them, but actually understanding who they are and where they're coming from. We connect with them to make better decisions, to form new habits. We know how we did, and we can consistently improve together. Luck storming is just a way to run meetings that hopefully takes some of the stress and slowness and frustration out and make them more interactive, more participatory, give everybody a voice, make better decisions, show more information faster, right? And it's based on a lot of things. You can search the web and find a lot of these tools that we have put into luck storming. So continuing with that, the next thing we like to do is begin building a vision. So with your project leadership team, now this might be the only team you meet with if you're small. It might be one of many teams you meet with if you're large. But sit down and talk about what is our vision for this thing. So this is a question we like to ask. Hey, suppose we're back in this room or this digital room 2 years from now, and we're saying this project has been really effective. I consider it effective because now begin writing down on those Post-its, one idea per Post-it, what your answer to that question is. So people start putting those on the wall. You can actually have your personas up on the wall already. So you can say, look, think about these personas and think about how they would ask. So if customer is up there as a persona, you may not have a customer in the room who will answer that question for you. You need people in the room who can speak for the customer to put some stuff up there. And we don't want to stop anyone at 3. What we say is get at least 3 ideas up there. But if you have 50, put 50 up there. We want all of your ideas, everything you would love to have on your wish list. And it can be, here's a problem we have that we've solved. Here's some new opportunity I know we can do with digital that we've never done before. The sky is the limit. And some things may go up there that you say, we can't do that. No way. That's totally out of bounds. It's just the things we're doing, can't even consider that. That's fine. You would rather err to the side of people being way too far outside the box than way too far inside the box. So get all those ideas up there, get them organized, and then you can begin to categorize those. So what we like to do is we like to have numbered stickies. I'm just going to say as if it's real, but no, from now on, I mean real or digital. Numbered stickies, and you begin going through each one of those ideas. And as you read off each idea and discuss it a little bit, you then say, okay, I'm going to put this first idea under sticky number 1. Here's the next idea under sticky number 2. And at some point, someone goes, hey, that one, that's really similar to that idea under number 2. Okay, let's group those together. And at the end, you have them all grouped and you actually name them. Now I've got categories of things that I want to get done. So I've organized my list very succinctly and I can begin tackling it. Remember our prioritization exercise with personas? We're going to do the exact same thing with these idea categories now as well. So now if we look at these and we say, we have 35 different categories of ideas we'd like to get done, but we know we may not get all of them done. Well, here's the top 4 that we are going to get done this year. Now, that might be your one and only meeting that you do with a project leadership team. Or if you're a large group, Prison Fellowship, I've got a few screenshots here from stuff that we've done for them. You might actually meet with multiple different lines of business or departmental managers and their teams and those kinds of things. But the process is actually pretty similar. So start with a leadership team. Then you can meet with individual teams. Then we like to go back to the leadership team and say, here's what you said, but here's what everybody else in the organization said too, and what their priorities were. And now as leaders, you need to take all of those ideas and you need to prioritize them again for us so we can go back and try to put a plan together. Now remember, their priorities are not necessarily the final priorities. You are the expert who's helping to decide what those should actually be. So when you're doing this physically, there's kind of the results of collaboration that you might see on a wall. You might see similar things on a digital wall. And you can kind of see in this particular case, you see those months across the top. So what we did in this particular case was we said, okay, which ideas do we think we can get done in 3 months, 6 months, 12, 18, and so on and so forth. And we began putting all the ideas under those different headers. Now remember, to me, that is the most efficient, cost-effective, time-effective way to do this. It is not necessarily the most effective, all-encompassing way to do it, depending on how large you are, how complex you are, what your budget is, how much time you have available. There are a lot of other ways to listen to your team. I've listed a bunch of them here. You can see sophisticated journey mapping and stuff like that can be a part of this process. We've done some of that for organizations like Wells Fargo. One other very efficient way we like to do it is also using survey feedback. So there's a survey feedback tool we've created called Rate Your Intranet. It's actually being rebranded as Rate Your Digital Workplace because it's very similar, where you can survey your folks, get benchmarks, and resurvey them again the next year. So although you might have a small group of people on your team helping to do the very interactive exercises, you might be able to give everybody in an organization a little bit of a voice by using very cost-effective electronic surveys to do that. And when you're all done and you're packaging it all up, this is, remember, just the first step. So this is the raw material. It does not have to be a document. We have a document template we use to make it very efficient for us. It might be in OneNote or Evernote or PowerPoint or however it makes sense for you to summarize everything. But ideally, you take all the stuff you've done through listening and you put it into a document. This does not mean it has recommendations in it. In fact, there's no all it says is, this is the raw material we're going to analyze to put a plan together. And ideally, you can give that back to your leadership team and say, if there's anything we missed, if there's anything we got wrong, if there's anything you want to add to this, now's the time to do it as we go into analyzing all of this to decide what the plan looks like. And that's what you do next. You move into, now I want to understand all of that data. Now I want to do more deeper business analysis on it. And the three things we see that you do in that time are assess the situation, really understand what's going on. Think of it about when you go to the doctor, right? So I just had a neck injury where I went to the chiropractor and he's kind of like, oh, does it hurt when you do this? Does it hurt when you do that? And it's like, yes, it does. I really want you to fix that because you've just put me back in touch with how much it hurts and how much I want this pain to go away. That's part of assessing the situation. Where does it hurt? How much does it hurt? Let's remind our leadership team where it hurts and how much it hurts, because they're going to have to prioritize this relative to a lot of other really important things they need to think about too. Then you envision the future. What's it going to look like when we get this done? Paint a picture, tell stories, use statistics, particularly when it comes to the third part of this, what's our business case for actually moving forward with it? So rapidly with all of that, we already talked about where does it hurt. The other side of situation assessment is opportunity analysis. So part of what digital is doing is maybe solving pain. Where does it hurt? Let's do something about that. Part of what it might be doing is something new, some undiscovered country that you want to be a part of, some new opportunity, which isn't necessarily a pain point because the group doesn't know that it's a pain point. At least they don't know that yet. But you need to explain to them that this is a new way we can do something. This is a new way we can engage with each other. This is something that maybe is painful that you didn't even articulate as painful, but we've seen the capabilities of this thing we're doing, and look at these things it can solve that you're not even thinking about solving yet. That's what opportunity analysis is all about. And you need to do that in a way that's sensitive to your culture. Some executives are very focused on, when I approve projects, I want to understand the problem this project is trying to solve, and that's all they consider. So I've had things not get approved because there are amazing opportunities they could pursue, but they said, not how I approve things. I solve problems. That's how I approve budgets. If that's what you've got, translate your opportunities into problems, because that's really what they are. They're problems that have not yet been defined that they will have a solution for. On the other hand, if they're more blue sky and trying to explore new things and open, they might be more responsive to looking at things more as opportunities. Most are balanced. Now, envision a better future. What does envisioning a better future look like? Well, it really means understanding where you are and envisioning a better future, right? So you can kind of see on the left over here is, that's what you kind of, when you talk about the problem, you want people to get the sense of, here's our current state, right? We have to cross this bridge every day, and it's dangerous and scary. You could get hurt. You could cut yourself and get tetanus, who knows what, but rain can fall on you because it's all open. Our future state is safe, straight, comfortable, dry. You're protected from risk. So you want to understand the current state. You want to envision the future state. The more you do both of those things, the better off you are. One tool for doing that is what we call a fit gap analysis. And it's an industry term. It gets applied to a lot of things. Here's how we think about it. And we think a lot of people miss some things. So the ideal solution, based on what all this information you've listened and gathered, here are some ideal things we want to do with this solution. And for something as broad as digital workplace, you might have a lot of different fits and gaps as you look at all these different needs. But here's the ideal solution for one of them. And by the way, here's the digital workplace tool set that we have or that we're thinking about acquiring. And as you notice, it does some of the things that the ideal solution would do, but not all the things. And it also does some things that aren't even listed in the ideal solution. So that overlap, that's the fit. That part that it doesn't do, that's the gap. Now, what do you do with that? The next thing you do is you look at it and say, what can we do to extend that ideal solution to cover the gap, right? That might be simple setup things. It might be out-of-the-box configuration tools. It might be third-party add-ons, whatever it is. And what you have left is hopefully this very slim risk area of, oh, here's some things we think we may not be able to do that, can we live with that? But what most people often miss is understanding, what about all these other things you didn't even bother dreaming about that we can now do? That's more than fit gap, that's opportunity. So when people go, oh my gosh, I really had to have a pop-up that does a certain thing and you can't deliver that in this particular solution. Well, okay, maybe that's true, but you know what? One thing we are delivering that you didn't even talk about is calendar management and automated process with approvals and these kinds of things that weren't even on your list that are incredibly powerful. And so suddenly people might go, well, maybe I can live with a few of those downside risks because I'm getting all these other things that are helpful that I wasn't even dreaming about yet. So be aware of all those when you tell your story. And then stories are awesome. Stories with pictures are even better. So here's one that we did for a client. We do these almost every single time. They always look a little different, so right size it. But this story was sort of a, hey, once upon a time, we were a small organization and we had a few systems and a few ways of sharing content and it worked pretty well. But then something horrible happened. We grew and it became more complex and we had more servers and we even had some of these innovative things that we do that are kind of apps that track some of their own information and they weren't really connected to everything. And not everybody had the ability because of security or training to get to everything. And you know what, then the world changed and now we had remote people working on their computers that couldn't log into our systems because of firewalls and personal accounts and mobile systems that made that even more difficult. And so over time, by the way, we merged with this other organization and they had a whole new set of servers involved. And now all of a sudden, people were very discombobulated trying to figure out where the information was that they needed to get their jobs done and to make decisions. And so our vision for this was to create more of this one centralized place for digital connection with each other. And although it'll be a long time making the picture look like this, the idea is people now say, we've still got a lot of information. We get a lot fewer places we have to go to get to it. And we have a lot more access, however we prefer to access it, whether it's our mobile device, our laptop at home, our desktop at the office. So things like that, as simplistic as they might seem, executives kind of get that big picture, right? They look at it and go, okay, that ugly diagram with all those lines going all over the place, that kind of feels familiar. And that pretty one that looks well structured, that seems attainable. That seems like a good vision. So they can get behind that a little bit more. Now going beyond that, build your business case financially. There's tons of great information out on the internet around business cases for digital workplace. I've got a ebook called Digital Workplace ROI and Metrics. So it's got a ton of things listed in there. You can use that to create your own metrics to say, hey, here's the industry normatives that we see that can help us. So start plugging that stuff in to build out your business case. Now we're to the third step. And I'm actually most of the way through the slides now, but let's kind of rapidly go through this. So now what actually goes into my plan? Once I've kind of done all that analysis to say, here's how I think things should get done. As the expert, by the way, maybe I've resequenced what leadership wants. They might have said, I want this in 3 months. And I might have said, this thing you want in 3 months, it takes 6 months to do. You can't have it. This other thing in 3 months, there's 2 other things that are predecessors out here at 6 months you need to do before you can get to that. I'm going to move those around, but at least you know their desires before you do those things and you can communicate back to them. Now you're thinking through what are the sections of a plan document that I want. And I've kind of talked through all of those already, so I won't read through them now, but all of those are out there as things that these are what to leave in. remember this is an annual plan. So it's also important to know what to leave out. Be very purpose-driven with what you're doing. You don't want detailed requirements yet. You don't want detailed project plans yet. You're just trying to get buy-in to the big picture to move forward. All these things, important. They have their time, they have their place. Your annual plan is not the time or place to focus on those things, other than perhaps at a very high level. Here is where you begin to focus on those. So again, I talked about ideally you start with a roadmap, then you get into an annual plan type of cadence. Within the annual plan, you're doing project plans multiple times per year. You're rolling project plans out. And then you have your implementation plans. If you're moving with agility, your project plans still are not waterfall project plans. They're high-level project plans, and then you use agile requirements gathering methodologies to rapidly move forward with each of those. Our experience is this. If you try to take big steps with your plan, you wind up with big mistakes. I'm pretty sure this is not a real picture. They probably figured out the problem before they got quite this far with the bridge, but it illustrates the points. If you're trying to move really fast, you get to a destination faster, oftentimes only to look up and say, this isn't the destination that we thought we were aiming for. So that kind of agile approach is very helpful. If you can take lots of small steps, as long as it fits into a bigger picture grand plan, that can ultimately lead you more to transformation. And this kind of walks through all of those things. I won't talk to that today from a time standpoint. At the end of this, understand your plan does not have to be this elaborate, beautiful document. Remember, this is agile. It's moving quickly. If you have a big, thick document, we used to develop those, and for some big clients, we still have to. But for the most part, we focus on much more agile, simple plans. They're more PowerPoint based. So we can kind of say, okay, now here's the phases that we have defined and the approximate times. Here's some ongoing things we need to do outside of this to support this, to keep it going. Here's some specific process designs that are going to be important, particularly the first phase. Here's a page for each phase that we're going to go through with the very high level requirements and milestones involved in that phase, and ideally an estimate of start and end dates, and maybe, at least for the first stage, some kind of budgetary range for people to expect so leadership can start to budget for it. So very simple, not very complex, easy for people to digest, because I guarantee you, every year you do this, you'll get 6 months into the year, and the plan's going to look a little different for the last half of the year than it did when you started in the first half of the year. Now, how do you know it's worked? Well, first of all, you've shopped the plan, hopefully. You've gone back to the team with the plan, and you've revised and refined it. I've never had one yet where we go and they say, perfect, we're going to do it exactly as is. But instead, that's too much budget too soon. You've got something out here in phase 3 that we absolutely need in phase 1. Oftentimes, we're working very hard convincing the client that we understand you want to do a lot of this early on. Creating technology, rolling out technology that fast, not a problem. The problem is humans absorbing the technology that fast. If you try to take people too far, too fast, it's the tortoise and the hare. You might feel like you're hopping along real quickly, but at the end of the day, slow and steady is going to win the pace. Don't overwhelm people. So those are important things to know. And then we have this TICS rating guide that you can use to actually rate your plan. So ideally, you want to score as high as possible, right? So is your plan transformational, or does it solve just small problems? Is it incremental? Are you taking a slow and steady pace, or are you trying to do everything all at once in one massive big phase? Is it collaborative? Are you bringing people together across the organization to do this, or are you really just letting one team control it? Is it just IT run for everybody? Is it everybody co-participating in running it? Is it HR is running it because it's internal communications? Is it collaborative? And then, interestingly, although you want to do all these things, you want to do it in a way that's simplifying, right? So one thing we always say is integration is not optional, meaning probably the best way to put it is we had one of our clients at one point tell us when we were coming in for a failed project that they asked us to come do some recovery on. One of the folks said, we felt like every day we'd get up and we'd put a heavy backpack on to go take a hill for leadership. And we love our leadership team and we believe in them, so we willingly did that. And that backpack was filled with rocks. And those rocks had the names of technologies on them that we had to use in our job of taking that hill. And one day, someone from leadership came in with a rock on it that said CRM. And they put it in the backpack and said, that should help. and then they walked away. Well, that didn't help. That didn't simplify. It was another rock in the backpack, right? So what are you doing to simplify? What is this doing to actually remove burden, remove rocks from people so they can move more efficiently? So a few things to think about in the wrap up. First of all, if you want to change, it really is about people. And the thing I love about talking to nonprofits is they get that, right? Technology is great. Technology is important. It's part of my heartbeat. I really enjoy it. But really, transformation is about people first and really process next. And technology just exists to serve those ends. So make sure people are a very interwoven part of everything you're doing here. Even if you say, hey, in my heart, I want to serve people. This is why I'm doing technology. Awesome. I love that. That is a great mission to have. But if you don't make people part of the planning and the design and the feedback loop, then even though you're setting a goal to serve them, you're going to surprise them in a bad way, and it's not going to go well. Some other resources I talked about today's links. Happy to get all of those to you, including the ebook I mentioned, some of the worksheets. Those are all free for you to get. You can come to the Aparo folks and they'll reach out to me. That's fine. There's my contact information if you want to come direct to me. I'm glad to get those. Give me the grace of a week or two. We happen to be in a super busy time and I don't have this just in a nice packaged place I can send to you, but I will get it to you. If you like the idea of the luck principle, it's out there on Amazon in book form. You might find that interesting. And this is what we do. So if you're looking for assistance with it, we work through Aparo a lot of times. You're also welcome to reach directly out to us. I hope you guys found some interesting takeaways and some things you can add. Remember, don't take this as a prescription. Take it as a framework and make it fit your unique situation. Thanks so much.
You know, Jeff, I want to thank you so much for sharing this information. And 3 key things I think that people can take away. Number 1, the why factor. We hear that over and over again, and I'm sure you do too, when people are trying to implement tech. They don't answer the question why before they ever start trying to introduce a technology. So keep that in mind, guys. You've got to figure out why. The second thing that really struck me was in all these samples in this framework, you didn't name the tools at all. You're naming the problems we're trying to solve. The tools are incidental. The tools are the tools to help us solve the problems. Making a plan for the sake of using technology just because technology is there is doomed to fail, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. So, and then
if you've got a hammer,
time. You have to allow time. It doesn't happen overnight.
If you got a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Don't focus on the tool, focus on the problem.
Indeed, indeed. Well, listen, thank you so much. I know you have a very tight turnaround. You've got another session underway. And guys, as usual, I will post a PDF of this deck, and then I'll be happy to share with you the links to the resources that Jeff shared, and we'll go forward from there. Feel free to reach out to either one or Jeff, and we'll be happy to help you with things. Thanks again, Jeff. I sure do appreciate it.
Love you guys. Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.